and becoming part of a greater social media network that is being used for social justice. And blogging is like 10 steps ahead. Okay. Yeah, if we could just make sure that computer runs. Please, no matter what level you're at, feel free to stop some of us and say, hey, what the hell are you talking about? Because there is another language that is emerging from the social media and transmedia experience. So what is a hashtag? Super simple. What is a hashtag? A hashtag is like a bookmark about an issue. So right now you have a hashtag, like if I wanted to look up what happened yesterday's protest with Monday Night Mission in Hollywood and the issue and trying to stop the public ordinance on sharing food and the rally that they had in Hollywood, one of the hashtags was no to the food ban. So if I looked up hashtag no to the food ban, I would get all of the social media that was posted under that hashtag, which also becomes very valuable if you are transmitting content, because I'll get people's pictures from the event, which is now new content, right? People's videos they'll hashtag from the event. So it's a way of bookmarking and creating almost like an encyclopedia of an instance or a moment in time. Like Occupy LA, we did it for MIGS. If you looked up the hashtag MIGS, you would have found a bunch of things related to the May Day event that was going on.
This was May 1st General Strike.
Yeah, May 1st General Strike.
M1GS.
Or if you looked up MAM, March Against Monsanto, you would find a bunch of content related to March Against Monsanto. So it's a filtration, and it's a way to sort of razor line into what you're looking for. And it's a great way to get breaking news about that and have things go viral. Because people will hashtag it hasn't spread very far, and you're like, that picture's crazy. You know, I'm either gonna create a story around it or just make a little headline like about how I feel personally looking at this, or create a meme out of it and send it out. And then all of a sudden, a meme is a graphic with words on it. And you've seen a lot of them, Grumpy Cat, you know the Grumpy Cat?
Oh, I see all these things, you know, picture, somebody says this, and you got all this stuff.
A picture with words on it, often
what's that?
ironic or sad, or create some sort of emotion, or transmits
Ah,
information.
thanks.
But when you see a
It came out
picture
blurry
or
because I was trying
graphic
not to let them know I
with
took
word
it.
on It is what we call a meme.
So
Well, I've done it, like I've stopped
You
and
just put it at the end of.
photographed
the text,
them.
Is that what you?
Hi, John.
Sometimes you put it at the end, sometimes
Depends on the
you
project.
put it at the beginning. There's no.
Okay, so,
There's no time you put it in the middle.
You can put it in the middle. Sometimes it'll become part of this, like if it's part of what you're saying, and it's like people are marching on the streets of LA to say no to the food ban, hashtag no to the food ban, you know,
Can you do multiple hashtags?
you can do multiple hashtags, people will do it by location.
Yeah, that's rough. That's good.
so wait, you know what? We were gonna do introductions,
Introductions, yeah.
and then I interrupted because I'm being all ADHD over here. So
She basically wants,
Going
so,
around the room.
So maybe we could put like basics on the on the agenda.
okay, so we're gonna put basics on the agenda. She's actually gonna stop me so that we can start moving forward, yeah.
Hey Adrian, why are you not here? That's if you're not within 200 miles of LA, you have to be here. You can't be watching on live stream. I'm talking to people on live streaming, and then someone just chat. Oh, you are on your way. I didn't even read it. I just saw his name, and then I told him. But we do have people coming from San Diego, so yay. But
They can hear us?
they can see you and they can hear you.
Okay.
So if you're not comfortable with that, let me know.
I'm David, yeah.
Hi. Do you want to come in the circle? We can make it bigger so we can.
Somebody said already.
Well, here we'll scoot back and then we'll do introductions.
Okay, sorry, so we jumped a little bit.
Good, you can be the first to introduce yourself.
So basics.
Okay, so
Shares there.
I lost. You have the paper. Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah.
So
trash
Are you
can
gonna
right
do
there.
breakout groups?
It's possible, or I
So
lost my
maybe a
pen.
breakout- Maybe, I had it. Did
Oh.
I give it back to you?
You gave it back to me, and then I lost it.
Is that it? She took it.
Oh, she took it. Okay.
So
So,
maybe one of the breakout groups could be, the basics.
yeah, we could do like breakout groups later, and we could talk about like individual, like, I don't know. But
Coffee is ready if you want some coffee.
yay!
This is our hero for now.
Yes.
So, I'll just start with introductions, and then we can go this way.
Turn your guns quiet.
My name is Patty Beers. Most people know me from the live streaming that I do. I'm on PM Beers on Ustream. The reason why, I guess, what were we saying? Like, what did we want to get out of today?
Who we are, where we're from, and why we're here today.
So I called this meeting today because kind of my bigger goal for this meeting is to coordinate different activist groups in LA and Southern California to help amplify each other's voices. So I'm hoping that each different activist group can form their own media team, and I can help with that. And so we'll probably talk about more later, through the workshops, we'll be talking about how we can amplify each other's voices. But that's my goal, is for each individual activist group to become empowered to tell their own story and have their own voice. Go ahead.
My name's Scott, and I've been following a credo of Be Your Own Media for about 30 years. And back then, it was cutting and pasting and typing on an electric typewriter and snipping out little images and gluing them on something and photocopying them on one of these things. Right? And now I have a risograph, and I use Microsoft Publisher, and I do a sort of desktop publishing at times. But also for political campaigns and things, I do new media, which is evolving very quickly. It can turn out to be pivotal in a campaign. I wouldn't say it substitutes for a campaign, but I think my perspective on this is, how does the use of media and communication influence assorted projects and campaigns that I'm involved in? So that would be the student movement, the labor movement, Occupy, assorted community groups work. That's me.
Hey, my name is John Brennan, and I'm from Thousand Oaks, which is out in Ventura County. And then I was participating with Occupy LA, and then I went to Occupy Ventura, Occupy Eagle 5, and then decided to get a working group together in Ventura to do Occupy News Radio, and so I could give advice on how to do that. I use Live 365 to stream. It's a good service. It's like $99 a month, and I could have up to 1,000 listeners at one time. And it's also on TuneIn. You should find it on TuneIn, so any mobile device could actually get it. You can listen to it while driving or anything. And we had the capability of being live 24/7. Right now, we just have pre-recorded material media that we did, and we just haven't cycled through right now. But also looking for other people if they want to join the team. I'm working with people in Occupy Venice to get it going more, because right now it's just me before that, so that's not much of Occupy, and it's just me, so more people the better, and that's it.
My name is David. I get involved in the Occupy LA and Occupy Road Parade. And today I came here, I want to learn the new skills, how to use the social media to spread the message. And I use Facebook all the time, so I want to improve my skills here.
My name's Richard Mario Procida. That's my name on my blog. I'm a blogger, and I'm also the team captain of the Brea Congregational United Church of Christ Social Action Team. And so I'm just trying to learn how to use social media more effectively, because using this Facebook. On my blog, I call myself a prophet of the Christian web, so I'm a prophet of the Christian web.
My name is Lola, and I'm Lou's wife, and Lou is taking some remarkable videos and putting them together with music, and it's just so interesting to watch. And he really holds a person's attention so that they can learn about what's going on. And so basically, I'm in school. I'm studying for my paralegal, and I'm pretty busy most of the time. So I'm here as note taker today, and to get to find out what's going on.
Would you mind sharing your notes perhaps with the group?
I don't know that they're great, but I don't mind sharing.
That's okay, they always very interesting.
Hi, my name is Freddie, and I'm Lou's assistant, and I'm just here to learn, see what I can learn.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm Lou, and I just want to see how to go more viral out there.
Uh-oh.
I've been in Facebook, but I've been an activist since 2000.
Oh, you don't have to do that.
Do you want to squeeze it right here?
Going to the marches and stuff like that I have seen on media.
Oops.
Few of us, we need more cameramen, more journalists out there. And I think that's where we could communicate in the sense that, we all have our skills in essence, that, we put something together. I'm not a filmmaker, but there's software out there like iMovies. It's so easy to just start putting all this stuff together. And since I'm a DJ, I kind of look at it as, okay, how can I put this song? What song reflects this little part? And so I've been doing it more like an experiment. It's the essence that it's driving me to do these videos. And yeah, I try to get them short enough for people, to watch. I've done some, watching hour, 2 hours of, just marching, and there's good interviews, but I felt like, okay, how could it be more entertaining to catch people's attention, and at the same time make the video, educational of what's going on, pictures and stuff like that. So I've got little trailers here and there. I'm working on other projects that, it's taking my time, and so I'm doing a non-profit. It's not, but it's something that I feel that I could contribute. And if it works, great. But that's what I'm here for. I see how we could get our heads together and see how, whether we make flyers and get people to say, hey, print this out, give them to everybody, go out at Walmart, go out over there, just give them to people, but more informative of what's really the issues. And get, to where it's right there with it. If you want information, go here, get a website. The people, they come up with really, they have the information. There's a lot of facts over here. I'm saying there's, it's like ignorance is just, it's a choice, that people take to be, the information's out there. And we've been too long. I've been an activist since 2000, and it's like when I saw that the movement over there in the media being nothing shown of the protests, that 90% of the people out there at the inauguration were protesters. And I had my camera, and that's when I started thinking, well, the media's not showing it, somebody's got to show it. And at the time it was, everything was like, I didn't have these programs that I have now with the technology. I mean, if we use them, there's some that are so easy. You can just use it yourself and put videos or whatever, in it.
We can talk about a lot that more, but we'll just get through the introductions and then.
My feelings
Okay.
See how we can get it viral.
So, my name's Melissa Hogan. I had just finished my master's in screenwriting at UCLA, where I wanted to work for corporate media and make it big. And about 2 months after finishing my master's, I found myself joining Occupy LA. And I began to really understand what was going on with corporate media at the encampment, where we would be like, where are they? When the first few hundred of us showed up. And so when I learned about the corruption, I began transmitting it on my Facebook page, which blew up. So I inadvertently became involved with transmedia, but actually joining Facebook was a prerequisite kind of in my class when I went to UCLA. So over the past 2 years, I've learned a lot about transmedia, and I stand in solidarity with Patty's mission. I think her and I had many late night talks about how do we create real people's media here, and that's kind of what I'm here to do today, is to kind of connect the dots and come out of the closet as kind of digital activists that are looking to take our content and push it into real action and to agitate the public and to work in solidarity, because every person here has a different talent and a different skill. And when we work together, we become a true team, and that is, when we'll talk about it, but that is how things go viral.
What is trans media?
We'll get into that.
We'll get into it.
We'll do that.
I will be speaking about that at the end, because it's really, it's gonna tie together everything you're doing here.
So we ruined her career.
We ruined my career.
I'm Rachel, and I became politically active, I guess officially when Occupy started, and kind of just a collectivist right now, feeling that. But I'm here to learn to get a little more into it, see what I
She's not a collectivist. She shows up at all the actions. Her son, who's 10 years old, spoke at the Trans-Pacific Partnership rally that I had. So
Yay.
she's an activist, her husband's an activist, and they're raising 2 activist children. I just want to say that. So my name is Lauren Steiner, and I'm here to talk about, press releases and how to still try to reach out to the corporate media. I myself wanted to be a broadcast journalist all through high school in the early 70s and in the late 70s in college. And when I finally did an internship at a broadcast station in Boston in '78, I realized, the maxim, if it bleeds, it leads. And I always called it the 3 S's: sensationalistic, superficial, and simplistic. And yet, when I graduated, I really didn't know what else I was going to do. And I fell into this thing called public access TV, which, for those of you who don't know about it, it was actually the first citizen journalism. It started in 1972 at the Alternative Media Center at NYU. A fellow by the name of George Stoney was considered the father of public access. And it was the opportunity for citizens to learn how to make their own media with television. It was at the time when Sony introduced the Portapak, which was a portable deck and a lightweight camera that anyone could singly go and shoot video. So my career pretty much during the 80s was in public access TV and teaching individuals and also community organizations how to produce television. I joined the Occupy movement at the beginning, the very first day, and really didn't participate so much in media at the time. I joined the Actions Committee, and within 3 weeks I was planning the first Occupy LA teach-in, and as such, had the opportunity to contact media about, covering it. And I think the first day when Robert Reich spoke and we had about 500 people in attendance, we did get some coverage. But mostly for the past 2 years, I've been planning campaigns and actions. And the most recent one I think I did for the Trans-Pacific Partnership was the most successful. And so I could talk a lot about making our own media, but I think others probably have experience doing that, and it's better left to them to speak about it. So since Patty asked me to talk about how to write a press release and press advisory and how to try to get the mainstream media interested, I will, when it's my turn, confine my remarks to that.
Pete Thottam, I'm an attorney. I was active with Occupy LA, helped organize the Rose Parade action using social media. Here to listen and learn.
Damon, I'm a stills photographer. I've been involved with Occupy since the beginning, and just here to learn too.
If we can maybe open up a circle, and I have some seats for other trying to come in, just so, yeah, we can actually.
I don't think we can really scoot back here, can we? I think there's 2 empty chairs over here, and we could fit one more chair over here also. Make Nas what? I can't even hear.
Make Nas and Fernando introduce themselves.
Oh, yeah.
One of the importance of us is all meeting and all understanding each other's skill sets and getting to know each other. One of the most important things about communications art is communicating and knowing what your knowing what your resources are and knowing what people can do, because there's going to be nobody here that can do everything, except maybe one guy I can think of. But I mean, it's really like, so it's important that you hear each other, and it's important that you begin to recognize what your skills, what your capabilities are, and what's necessary to create your own network, which is essentially what we do. So if you could just introduce yourself, tell us why you're here, and kind of what you do.
I'm an independent journalist from San Diego. I started a radio show in college at Sonoma State in 2010. I called it Free Thought Radio, and I wanted to kind of go against neoconservative media on both sides. I see that the warmongers of both parties, so I wanted to make an independent thing that read between the lines and went a lot deeper than the superficiality of both the left and right paradigm. Interviewed some of my favorite people, from musicians to people like Governor Gary Johnson or Cindy Sheehan, and I thought I was just an opinion show host until I realized that I was actually reporting on Obama continuing George Bush's war crimes when the mainstream media was not. So I realized, hey, maybe I am a journalist. So I went that route, and after that realization, I went hardcore into trying to deliver the truth, and moved to AM radio down in San Diego. Palomar College has an AM radio station, it's 1320, and it's a TV station, and really just been blossoming it. I transformed it from Free Thought Radio to Free Thought Media Network, so it encompasses TV and journalism and blogging and everything like that. I did some journalistic projects. I covered most of the third-party presidential campaigns, and I covered like Hunter Thompson's sort of the Libertarian Party campaign on the road, and really expose the two-party system to what it is, and just doing journalism projects. And I'm trying to work on a big journalism project to go over to Palestine and film some war crimes over there and document everything. But yeah, the website is freethoughtmedia.org, and actually I cut down the show from 3 hours to 2 hours, and I live cast the Nick Santai Media show as the third hour. It's once a week on Monday.
I'm Nick Brennan from the antimedia.org and Marching Against Monsanto. Just basically started the Facebook page a while back, and it turned into kind of a media network of its own. And what we try to do is try to help promote independent journalists, try to bring independent journalists to the mainstream more or less. And that's pretty much what our focus has been. Try to break through all the media nonsense, all the mainstream media stuff. And been pretty successful at building a Facebook network, so that's what I wanted to talk about today is some strategies to improve you guys' Facebook reach and all that. And I think that any media, like we have to tie all the like journalists have to tie in with the social media in order to get the word out further, because we're not going to get any help, any outside help from the mainstream or from any corporation or anything like that. So I think it's really important to get all the journalism connected with the social media admins to work together. That's a big challenge.
I'm Christy Ferris. I started out as citizen media. Basically, I just wanted to document what was going on down at Occupy. So I got tired of sitting home watching it. It was making me mad. So I said, I gotta see if this is really happening in my town. So I went down there and I just couldn't leave. So I wound up with the Twitter for the media for Occupy San Diego, and then all the Facebook videos eventually fell. So to my hands. So basically, I went from citizen media to now I consider myself, I guess, press. And I think the people here are going to be, the front runners. We need this to spread. Like, we came up from San Diego because right now there's 2 of us live streaming for the whole city. So we want to build on what you guys teach us here and take it back to San Diego, make it bigger. So that's my story.
Oh, hi, my name is John. My girlfriend's an activist with Occupy LA, so am I. We've been doing all sorts of activist work ever since Occupy LA started. It's been a long stretch, but that's who we are. I would also like to learn more about how to do social media. I'm not as activist as she is as far as the mouse goes, but I have trouble writing things, and that's where I can use the most improved as far as social media goes.
Lauren Steiner is going to talk about how to write a press release first, which is super important because that's how you get both mainstream and independent media out to your event, although you too can run media. So wait, what? Oh, Naz! Naz, are you going to introduce yourself?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Sorry, I missed Naz.
And Fernando.
And Fernando.
I am Naz, and I work at Expert Printing under Fernando, and I've been involved in activism for the past 2 years, and since then I've gathered a lot of skills, and at the same time, along with Melissa and Patty, we decided to create this forum so that we're able to share our skills with the rest of the community members, and at the same time with other activists, so that we're able to amplify our strength together, and at the same time bring a lot of the community issues to a lot of different people, especially in Los Angeles. And what I'm trying to take is, with our forum over here, that we are able to catapult our skills to basically talk about a very contemporary issue that is happening specifically in downtown, and Fernando is being affected by it, and that is gentrification. And we're going to use these skills, and at the same time, hopefully, we're going to use our strength to amplify that issue that's happening in downtown, and so that we're able to fight back as community members and as people, and trying to get rid of capitalism in simple terms. Thanks.
And then the next person we have to meet, and thank you, Fernando, for letting us use your space always. Expert Printing is currently being the developer who owns one of 3 massive developers in LA is trying to push out Expert Printing, and so has most of these small businesses, and this has always been a space where people can come and gather and do exactly what we're doing. So thank you so much for having us, and if you would say a few words. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome everyone here because you are very important people here, not just because of my issues, but a broader sense of the issues that imperialism or the monopoly capitalism has to do away with a lot of stuff, and they're committing such crime against humanity, and as you know. So this kind of alternative media is very important to expose and oppose the greed that they been imposing against the 99%. And so having this kind of alternative media is really very important because you speak for the people, you speak for the 99% or against imperialism itself. Without this, then they will do away with more greediness and so forth. I'm just, it's like I'm just one of their toy, that they can toy around with us, that they can, without any restriction, that they can raise rent to anybody, and that if they get away with it, it can be my time right now, but it's really everybody's issues. Gentrification is so huge. When you don't have no money and you cannot afford, when they buy this big developer is owning many of this property, then we're all subject to exclusion, and so that's how important you are, in terms of really putting a light on the bigger picture. Because the corporate media would not simply speak for us. They speak for the corporate greed. And so let's define, what is the line between you and the corporate media. And so that's distinguishes, many of us. Hopefully, more power to you, and hopefully we organize not just because of the issue, but more or less a long-term issue that affect all of us. And I thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. For those who don't know, the developer owns most of the block and just bought it and decided that all the real estate is now worth double what it was worth because property values have gone up ever since he's owned half the block. So he's trying to double Fernando's rent, even though we're in one of the worst economies that we've ever seen, at least my generation, or me. So, this is Lauren, I'm sorry?
Where's his house at?
Well, it's against the law in the state of California to have any sort of rent control protection for commercial businesses, which makes it very easy for corporations to push out commercial businesses. I used to work for Blockbuster in facilitation, and we always knew that we paid more than everyone else, but it was also a way to guarantee yourself a space. So it sort of creates a dynamic where the small business is completely screwed because anybody that comes in with bigger bucks, they push them out after their lease is up, and that's kind of the situation that's been going on. And it's against the law to create any protection for them, which is kind of crazy. So, but besides that, just to move on, Lauren Steiner is going to talk about how to write a press release, which is very important to an action. So, yes?
Sorry, there's notebooks and pens extra.
Yeah,
Awesome, thank you.
Some pens if anyone wants to take notes.
Yay.
And also you
Please feel
can pick
free.
up if you haven't already gotten it, one copy of the press release and one copy of the media advisory. But first I wanted to say that there are things that maybe people won't discuss in terms of being your own media, so I will say them before I get into this, which is that there's a lot of media outlets out there, alternative media that are not corporate media, but that are a little above making your own media. And by that I mean internet publications such as alternet.org, commondreams.org, counterpunch.org, truthout.org, and right here in Los Angeles, the LA Progressive. I think they're .com, actually. And these are publications where if you can put together a well-written article, they will publish it for you. So they go out. I don't know if many of you subscribe to them. You can subscribe to their daily digest for free, and every day in your inbox you'll see little blurbs as to what their articles are about. Many things are cross-published. For instance, when I did my campaign to stop SB4, this weak fracking regulatory bill that would have done nothing to make fracking safer but would have only green-lighted it in California, I wrote an article called California's Fracking Regulatory Bill, less than zero. And I originally had like 5,000 words, and I knew it had to be cut down because they would never publish anything that long. So I enlisted the help of a guy by the name of Steve Horn, who writes for the DSmog blog, and he's this amazing young guy. He's like 24 years old, but he's getting incredible scoops. And I basically told him, if you ever want to come, free housing in Los Angeles, I'll give you free housing in exchange for your helping me to edit this article down. So he helped me get it down to 2,000 words, a little under 2,000 words, and it was published in Common Dreams, Counterpunch, the LA Progressive, Wilder Utopia, and I think 2 other publications that I don't remember the name of. So it's very important to realize that there's other media out there in between the corporate-owned media and making your own media that you can take advantage of. They will want, the article to be well-written and well-researched, which is not to say that it can't just be an opinion piece, it certainly can. But it really helps if you've got a lot of links, and you can hyperlink, which is how I was able to do it, get it down. I just hyperlinked a lot of stuff, which referred people, when they clicked on that hyperlink, to other articles that provided more information about what I was trying to say. So getting to the press release, I think it helps sometimes to get mainstream media coverage if you're going to do your action as something that they might already cover. So Obama coming into town is one of those things. And I first experienced this last year when Alyssa actually enlisted me to help organize Occupy 90210. And that was the first action that we did in this park where we have the Trans-Pacific Partnership rally. And it was because Obama was coming to one of his typical like $32,000 a couple fundraisers. And Alyssa thought of the idea because just that week he had decided, he decided that his administration, Jim Messina, his campaign, could coordinate with the super PAC that had just been set up to counter Romney's super PAC. And Obama had said during the original 2008 campaign that super PACs were a cancer on democracy. So Alyssa was really bent out of shape about this, and she said, we should protest this fundraiser. And I was thinking, everybody knows what Occupy is against. Why don't we why don't we do this around what Occupy can be for? And so when I was going to the City Hall in Beverly Hills to see if we needed a permit to have a rally or what the parameters were for a permit in this park across from the Beverly Hills Hotel, I was just talking to a security guard, and I said, can you imagine $32,500 a plate fundraiser? And he said, yeah, imagine how many people that would feed. I'm like, oh my God, that's it. We're going to do something around hunger. So I called my friend Frank Tamburello, who's the executive director of Hunger Action LA, and I said, Frank, how many people would that feed? And he said, about 17,500 at a food bank, because a food bank meal is $2 a person. So I said, all right, if we wanted to raise money or promote some sort of cause, what would be a good hunger cause? And he said, well, how about our Market Match program, which matches up to $5 what people's food stamps can buy at a farmer's market. So I said, okay, great, that's a great idea. So we decided to use that rally to launch what became Occupy Fights Hunger. And therefore, we had this positive message that was also appealing to the media. So it wasn't just Occupy out there protesting with no positive prescription. It was like, okay, let's highlight the contrast here. And we actually did get a lot of media to cover that. I can't remember specifically. I think there was only one TV station though, and that was KTLA. And they were doing their, interviews. And I was kind of the last one to be interviewed. And I saw Alyssa kind of standing there and going on about all the ills of society and blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking to myself, they're not going to use any of this. I got to think of what's going to be a good soundbite. So I ended up saying something like, looking at the camera and saying, Obama, you should get out of that fancy house and come down to the street. Remember who elected you. Remember who you're supposed to serve. And I said something more, maybe about 30 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds, that was used on KTLA. And then the next day, I get calls from people, emails from people, Facebook mail. Oh my God, you were on Jon Stewart. I'm like, what? Apparently Jon Stewart was doing something on Occupy, on Obama, and he got this, and he used that 10-second quote of what I just said. And it was like, it showed the power, because people who I hadn't spoken to in years were contacting me from other states, telling me they saw me on, Jon Stewart. So it kind of made me think, all right, anytime you do an event and you want to invite the mainstream media, you have to think of what your message is going to be. And you really have to coordinate with all the people that are going to be speaking to the press what that message is, so that everybody stays on message and it doesn't become about something else, which is an issue that I always had with many Occupy protests, because they ended up being, many devolved into clashes with the police. And, there's nothing that the mainstream media loves more than, focusing on that and instead of on what we're out there protesting. So I always took issue with a lot of my Occupy comrades who made it about that. And, I totally understand that people have been brutalized by the police and I get where they're coming from, but there's nothing that the corporate state wants more than to have us fighting each other. And, even last night at the march for feeding people, to fight the ordinance that may ban public feeding, I saw some anonymous people with their, fishing poles and their donuts. And I just had to shake my head and say, no, any revolution in the past that has been successful because it gets the police and the army on our side. And if we're going to antagonize the police, who are just part of the 99%, then we've got nothing. So, in Beverly Hills, I made it my business to get to know the detective who's in charge of, monitoring protests and whatnot. And even, I just found out I've gotten to know him even more, and he's actually in charge of monitoring terrorist groups, okay? So I was able to turn him around from thinking of us as like a terrorist group that he has to worry about to, before this action, we went out for coffee at Starbucks, and I bent his ear for about 45 minutes on the Trans-Pacific Partnership and why it was so bad. And I think it's important, we were treated very, very nicely, wouldn't you say, by the Beverly Hills PD compared to the LAPD and that action. And I think part of it was because we had built up that relationship. Well, anyway, getting back to the press release.
Yeah, actually they were lovely.
Yeah, Beverly Hills.
They were.
Have generally been nicer, except when we had somebody get hit by a car, and that was a little bit strange, but.
Yeah.
Not gonna.
No, that was the one we did last year. But we also had a protest in the same park to try to get the LA Times, to try to tell Bruce Karsh, who's a local Beverly Hills resident and billionaire himself, not to sell the LA Times to the Koch brothers. And we got some good media coverage there. I did not handle writing that press release. That was done by Common Cause, who was one of our partners. And we didn't get quite as much as I would have liked, but we got the Hollywood Reporter, we got the Daily Beast, we got KXN Radio. We got the LA Times, sent a photographer. So here's the thing. So we did this rally for the this. I like to do a couple of things when I do an action. I like to kind of combine teach-in with a march, because that way there's two things to cover. So what we did was I got speakers from some very prominent organizations that are opposing the Trans-Pacific Partnership. 3 of them actually came down from San Francisco for this rally. And they are highlighted here in this media advisory. So what we did was, we had the rally so people could come. We tried to start it at an earlier time because we knew that when Obama comes to town, it always causes a traffic tie-up. And usually that's what the media loves to focus on, is the traffic tie-up and how people are inconvenienced by the president being in town. But, so we had it, we called it for like 3:30, 3 o'clock, for people to gather and park and make their signs. And, we did some chanting, we did some songs. And we noticed that there were 2 media outlets that were set up. Their entire afternoon was spent at the 1 o'clock, the 2 o'clock, the 3 o'clock. They were anchoring the news from our rally. So that was Channel 5 and Channel 9, which is also sort of Channel 2 at the same time. So they had a couple of crews there. They actually had those people stationed at the park, and then they had other crews stationed up at the fundraiser. So we sent out this media advisory. It says Monday because we sent it out twice, but the first time we sent it out was Friday. And I got media lists from different organizations. And a lot of them were redundant, a lot of them were not the right kinds of reporters. And I really tried to focus in on the LA Times and which reporters would be interested. And I called this one guy who I had sent a media advisory to, and he said, I think it was Michael Hiltzik, because he's always, you have to find out, my first suggestion is to do a little vetting of the reporters and find out who is sympathetic to your cause, who writes about these issues, And that was the first one I contacted, was Michael Hiltzik. Oh no, James Rainey, who supposedly was writing about the media, and he says he's no longer writing about that. He probably tossed it because he gets hundreds. And because they get hundreds, you have to make it, it's very important in your subject line to make it enticing. So our subject line was hundreds to rally in Beverly Hills over Obama's secret trade deal. Okay, so that kind of got everything in there. We had the number of people that were expected to rally, because after all, we did have 485 people RSVP on Facebook, and I assumed that about half would show. And it was true, we had about 250 people that day. And then, you know, Obama's secret trade deal, it sort of makes it sound enticing, you know. We didn't say the Trans-Pacific Partnership, we said Obama's secret trade deal. So, and then in the very first paragraph, we wanted to catch it, so we had the number of, we had the date, you know, when, where, we had something that we thought would be intriguing. This is the first to take to the public protest to the president, because so far all the protesting has been done at the trade talks all over the world, and who was going to be there, who were three very important people, you know, Obama, Harry Reid, and Nancy Pelosi. And then we included this 2 high-dollar fundraisers, because they always like that, you know, the idea that some big billionaire or celebrity, and in this case it was Magic Johnson and Haim Saban. So we had the what, we had the when, we had the where, and then we got into who was going to be there, and also the visuals that we had. And we thought very long and hard in planning this action how important it was to have visuals, because television is a visual medium, and we wanted to have something. So Vlad Popescu and his team made this great, like, 7-foot-long train, the TPP Express, that had Obama as the conductor, and the corporate logos plastered all over the sides of the train. And then we actually got these huge, like 20-foot by 30-foot banners from Washington, D.C., where they had been used. They had been, like, dropped from the U.S. Trade Representative's office. They did this big banner drop. So we had these huge banners, and one actually said, the big one said, corporate coup against people and the planet, and then the other one said, stop the TPP, release the text, because they haven't been releasing the text. 600 corporate advisors have it on their office computers, but not one member of the public, the press, or even Congress, with the exception of Alan Grayson, has seen this treaty. Yet Obama's trying to get it approved through fast track, which means they just have an up or down vote. They don't get to hold hearings, they don't get to call witnesses, they don't get to add amendments. So we feel if we can stop the fast track, we'll be able to stop the whole treaty. So the background is basically 2 paragraphs, and I wanted to keep it to 2 paragraphs because, again, they're really not going to read that so much. I mean, if they get past the first part, they're going to get to the bottom part. So we really tried to put everything in there, like the whole kitchen sink, but unfortunately it actually does affect the whole kitchen sink. So we talked about food safety, environmental protection, internet freedom, workers' rights, democratic sovereignty, healthcare and drug prices, banking and finance, NAFTA on steroids. We had the great, I don't know if we had that, yeah, Elizabeth Warren, you know, because she's very respected now, what her quote about it. So that was the press advisory, which we sent out on Friday, and almost immediately I started getting calls from people saying, well, are you going to the House, and where exactly is the House, and blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to be a little cagey on that, because it wasn't really our plan to go to the House, because it was 2 miles up a long, winding street with no sidewalks. We really kind of wanted to stay on the corner of the street leading to the House, because it was a major thoroughfare between the city and the valley, and we knew that there would be bumper-to-bumper traffic, which there was. So we would be doing public education as well, you know, so it was a 3-pronged thing: to educate the public, to try to influence Obama, and educate, well, get media coverage, getting media coverage to educate the public. And we succeeded, you know, beyond our wildest dreams, because we had 250 people there. I got these TPP Occu cards sent from the people that produced them, and we were able to hand out, like, I don't know, 200 Occu cards to people in cars that were interested. And of course everybody said, what's the TPP? Nobody had heard of it, of course, because the media hasn't been covering it. So because they were stuck in bumper to bumper, a lot of people, wouldn't open their windows, wouldn't look at us. You know how people are. But some people were actually really curious. So we were able to have this card to give to them. And, so getting back to the press release. So this is what we did, this press advisory, and then I knew that we were going to get coverage from KTLA because their person had called me. I wasn't sure about 2 or 9. They did just show up though without calling me. But here's the thing, I got 2 calls on my cell phone because I have my cell phone number here during rally hours only. And unfortunately, this was a big lesson that I learned. I mean, not that I didn't know this, but I did the best I could. You cannot have the person who's leading the action also be the press contact. Because I got 2 calls, one from Conan Nolan's intern, asking, Conan Nolan is the longest running political reporter in Los Angeles, and he's with Channel 4. And they were the only station that did not cover our rally, and possibly because I did not call this intern back because I was in the middle of like leading the chants or, trying to corral the speakers, whatever I was doing. It's very important to have at least one person who can be a media contact, Similarly, after we finished our speeches and it was time to march, Randy Page from KCAL 9 CBS wanted to interview me, and I couldn't let that go. And fortunately, there was a woman by the name of Nilu, who I had never met before, who I wouldn't have even noticed unless I had said, like in the beginning, because we had some TPP songs and I didn't want to lead them, so I said, who has a good voice? And so she came up, she took the megaphone, and I could see she was a kind of take charge person. So when I stayed behind to do the media interview with Randy Page, she took the megaphone and basically led the march for the whole rest of the march. And that was really helpful. Now it was interesting because even though I did speak in sound bites to Randy Page, and I'm very good at that, he did not use my clip when he did his reporting. He actually summed up everything I said. And that was good, because had I not done that interview, it's very dubious that they would have even read this press release, because they tend to be very lazy. There was this reporter from Channel 5, this young woman, they all look alike, the bleach blonde, young, like they look like they could be strippers in another life. And it's, I hate to say it, someone posted a meme of the anchors for Fox News, and they all look like that. There were about like 12 of them in like this little grid. They all looked exactly alike. And so she did not leave her van at all the whole time. She didn't even come outside to listen to the teach-in, which took all of 20 minutes, the speeches, so that when I came out, she was like, can you come over and tell me what this is all about? What is the TPP? And I'm like, so I'm speaking to her really slowly because I wanted to make sure that she would understand, and she was typing into her thing. She ended up using really none of it. But she did anchor it from there, and so of course, when they're anchoring it from somewhere, they have to at the very least say, we're here at this park in Beverly Hills where protesters are protesting the latest trade deal, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So even if that's as little as they said, which is as little as she said, it still got in the news like 3 times that afternoon, the letters TPP. And that is the only time, trust me, that station is going to cover the TPP. So even if it just put it out there to people in their homes that there's something going on that we don't know about. So Randy Page was a very good story, and also, who's the other one? Oh, Alex somebody from Channel 7. Now, I didn't interview him, but I stayed behind with the people on the ground. There was a little bit of confusion because Obama was an hour late, and we got word of it that he hadn't even left San Francisco, and I was nervous that we were going to lose our momentum. So somebody suggested, okay, let's march up to the house. And I said, all right, but just guys know it's 2 miles and it's straight uphill, a windy road. So Nilu took the group up to the house. Also, we had this little publicity stunt that we were trying to pull off, and we had told KTLA about this, and they were interested in doing it, and then they chickened out. We had this Czech, Vlad Popescu, who did the TPP train, dressed up in a suit and tie, and he wrote out a check for $16,200, and he was going to go to the gate of Beverly Park, where Magic Johnson lives, to say, we'd like to go to this fundraiser, here's our check, we have a message for Obama. And we told, the station they seem to be interested in doing this, but then, like I said, they chickened out. So Vlad did it with Jaime Casillas, who was with a professional quality video camera. So we have that whole thing on tape, and it was actually edited into a video that Clark Davis made. But it was something that we thought would be like a really good stunt to interest the media. And at first it was, but then I think they chickened out because the police had cordoned off an area, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a mile from the location, tried to keep media and our protesters away from getting close to the house. Would you say that was correct, Patty, because you were up there?
I got up there later.
Oh, but it was quite a ways. Weren't able to get up to
I think they sent us in a different direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the video was still broadcast.
Yeah.
Because I posted it to Revolution News, and it still went to, the thing of blood still went to, I think it was 70, 80 people. And when you think about it, those 80 people have on average 250 friends each that shared it. So it did go out there, it just didn't go out with KTLA, which is
But here's the thing, you have to be noticing who's with the professional quality equipment. Because when I was down there with everybody else, because there were people that didn't want to walk, and I felt somebody should stay behind, and as leader of the action, I was going to be the one. I saw people with, that there was still a television truck down there, and a cameraman. So I walked over to him, and I introduced myself, and I said, who are you with? And he said, Channel 7. And I said, oh, okay, well, you want to do an interview with me? You have to be bold, too. You have to ask, even if they don't come up to you. So I was able to say, answer a couple questions, why is this bad? And I said, it's bad for consumers, it's bad for workers, it's bad for the environment, and it's bad for national sovereignty. And that was the clip that Channel 7 ended up using that night on the news. And Alex, whatever his last name is, the reporter, did give, I would say, more play than anyone, with the exception of perhaps Channel 9 and Channel 2, really tried to talk about what our issues were with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So I feel in terms of getting mainstream media, and the press release is a different document entirely. The press release is something that you release at the day, and it basically says what happened, so that if somebody doesn't send someone to the event, they can pretty much cover it from your press release. And we did find that with our Bruce Karsh thing, the Koch brothers thing, they did pretty much on CBSNews.com, even though they didn't send anyone, they pretty much reproduced our entire press release. And these things are also very good for the Patch, which is owned by AOL now. There's these community online newspapers. And the Beverly Hills Patch, I just was going to go, they allow you to do your own blogs. So I was going to go publish something on that, and then I saw that they had ran something from City News Service that said, Occupy LA planning to protest Obama's, and I'm like, oh my God, Occupy LA isn't even involved in this, and I was thinking to myself, this is how they marginalize us, Here we have organizations like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Organic Consumers Association, Healthcare for All, Citizen Trade Coalition, and they're trying to make it about Occupy. So I immediately sent an email to the person from City News Service and demanded that they issue a correction, and they did. And then I went into all the little patches to see which patches had reproduced this story and asked that they also do a correction. And in so doing, I talked to the patch guy from Beverly Hills, and basically he ended up running, not all of this fundraiser, this is a little long. And it's long because I wanted to have a quote from every single speaker. And that's why we had like 5 speakers, so it's really long. But they did run, I would say, 3/4 of the press release completely as it was written in the Beverly Hills Patch. So, so there are, lessons to be learned, to do an advisory, and in your advisory, try to make it as catchy as possible in the subject line. Try to have visuals in your actions so that they know that there's going to be something visual for their viewers to see. Try to get important speakers. Try to do it at a at a important event if possible. Then follow it up with a press release. And then, like what I was going to say is about the LA Times. We never did get our story in the LA Times because I found like 6 different reporters that I sent it to, including the 2 women that were embedded with Obama. Kate Lithencumb, who used to report on Occupy. She was the LA person. And then the Washington, D.C. person, Christy Parsons. And what happens is Obama embeds them with his entourage. They spent the entire day with him in San Francisco and then down in LA. So just like they embedded the mainstream media with the Iraq War, it's how they get the reporting to be favorable to them. So they did write about the protester who was protesting deportations in San Francisco, but as far as the LA trip, it was just all fluff. It was all the wonderful things that, Obama said and all the wonderful things Magic Johnson said about Obama. And our little picture, because you also have to contact the photo editor, that's a completely separate person in a lot of these publications. The photo editor sent the photographer Christina House, who was actually at our Koch brothers thing, to the event, and she took a great picture of Nilo with the megaphone and a little caption saying what we were protesting and kind of put it into the body of this article. So even though the LA Times did not, quote unquote, cover our protest with a separate article or even like a few paragraphs in their main article, we feel that it got covered in the sense that they ran the photo and they had the caption. So, and plus, Obama saw us at 3 separate locations along his motorcade, and so that was good. And the final thing I would say, and this is what I need to work on myself, is after you get coverage, it's a good idea, and I haven't done this, but I'm going to do it now that I'm saying this. It's a good idea to call these reporters and thank them for their story. Or if they said something that was egregiously wrong, like the City News Service, to contact them and correct them. Or if they write something in the mainstream media that is not, accurate, comment, on their website with what is accurate. Or write a letter to the editor. I mean, we have a big campaign coming up with the TPP where we're doing petitions, and I've got a petition going to have the LA Times cover it because they've only had 4 articles and they've all been favorable. One of them was an op-ed by John Kerry, who is the Secretary of State designed to sell this for the Obama administration. So we're getting a petition, we're asking them to cover the TPP. There's going to be a date in January. This is going to be a national action. We're all going to go to our newspapers with our petitions, and it's going to be another thing to try to shed light on this agreement. So, try to develop relationships with reporters because they're not all our enemies. Some of them still do think they're journalists, and if you can develop a relationship, like I've got this relationship with the guy at the San Francisco Chronicle, David Baker, who's a business reporter, and he writes about fracking, and so he's been very amenable to suggestions for stories and quotes of mine and stuff like that because I've established this relationship with him even though I've never met him. And so I think it's a good idea to do that, if you want to get mainstream media coverage. And I don't know if you want me to take questions now or at the end, but
Yes, take questions, and could I just add on something really, really brilliant that you did with the CPP? Lauren and I have been working together for a really long time, and we're actually a very unlikely team, as many people would say, because I'm quite radical and won't speak to the police and whatever, but I'm like, if someone else is willing to represent kind of what's more on the opposite side of who I am, sure, go ahead and do it. And so we've been doing it for quite some time. And there was something very smart she did this time, which is after this event, she wrote an article. You wrote the article that appeared in Roar, right? Or was it from Roar magazine?
Yeah.
That wasn't you?
Yeah.
I thought I posted an article you wrote.
Well,
there was something though. You wrote something.
You wrote something, or was it a rebroadcasting of this?
Well, I wrote something. What I did was I did a pictorial essay.
Right.
So I spent like 2 days on this. Everybody posted their pictures to the event page, and we had some, professional quality video. Barry Levine put it on his Flickr page. And what I did was I culled out the pictures that I thought were the best quality pictures, and also the ones that told the story of the day. So rather than write an article on this, what I did was a pictorial essay from the very first, thing that we did, through all the speakers, a little quote of what each one said, to us doing the march, to the end of the day when Obama's motorcade turned the corner, to the media interviews. So I published that in LA Progressive. I published that in popularresistance.org. That's what you're thinking of?
So
That was awesome. That was so cool.
Content after the event in which something that she has organized, she was able to create sculpt the narrative, and I had something to run with on other networks that came directly from her and that I knew wasn't tainted. And then another very important element of what's going on here is when something is being organized, what Lauren was working on, there was a bunch of us in a chat box where a lot of things would be run through and kind of people participated as they could, but a lot of people are working together collectively, and so simply posting something like this in the chat box and being like, hey y'all, do you see anything wrong with this, or is this good, and having people to run it by is super important, because it might just be like, you need a comma right there. Like, it might just be like the simplest thing that makes it a little bit more legit, or it could be something more complex, like we're not getting the message, but kind of being able to vet through that group and having that support network is super, super important. But that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and take some questions. I have some things to take up, but if anyone wants to ask me, Lauren, any questions, she's ready to.
I have a question. So you said there was a press advisory and a press release, so I'm not sure what is the difference between those.
Well, this is the press advisory, and it's the one that went out. We thought it was important to do it a few days in advance, especially with something like the president's visit. So we wanted to give the media a few days' notice that something big was going on. So it really wasn't telling them everything that the press release told them. The press release was done on the day, and it was the type of thing where if they didn't want to cover it, they didn't want to send someone to cover it, they could make their whole story based on what was in this press release. And, of course, we didn't talk about the march and how that part went because we didn't know that in advance, but I got quotes from every single speaker. I said, give me the one killer quote that you're going to say in your speech so I can put it in a press release. And so the press release was really more as a follow-up on the press advisory. Press advisory was letting them know that something was going to happen. The press release is this is what is happening. And that's the difference between the two.
Do you need a certain amount of lead time when you send out the media advisory?
Well, because this event was on a Monday, we thought that Friday morning was a good enough lead time. We didn't want to do it Friday afternoon because we knew that they'd all be leaving for the weekend and it would just get lost. And we didn't really want to wait till Monday morning, which is when we send out the press release, because we just didn't want to take the chance. And we didn't want to send it out too far in advance. I guess we could have gotten it out Thursday morning, that would have been fine too, but Friday morning before everybody left to go out and do what they were going to do, we thought was the best time.
So you only need 2 days to get these people out there?
Yeah.
Unless they're a little bit more reluctant on weekends to come out, right? And then if there's like a big baseball game or like the Dodgers or something, kind of being zoned into what's going on in your community and what might draw the press away from you helps plan an event. Like if there's a Lakers championship and she's having, and somebody's organizing, a sort of action, it's much more likely that the press is going to want to be at the Lakers championship in LA.
Which is why you got to do your action at the Lakers championship, which is why Occupy is so good in doing like the art walk action, the chalk walk, because that's where the people were going to be. Now that got a little out of hand, but the media was so egregious in how they miscovered that. I was at home watching the thing, I was watching Pat's live stream at the same time as I was watching the media coverage of it, and it was like two different events were happening. I was so irresponsible what they did and how they wanted to blame the whole thing on Occupy. Meanwhile, I knew Occupy had already left. They were already over at Jalisco's.
They're at the bar.
Right?
Yeah.
And these were like a lot of drunken bar goers and restaurant goers.
They were watching live stream at the bar.
Who came out and saw that the police had formed this huge line, and they were understandably pissed. So the melee that ensued had nothing to do with the occupiers, who were very, properly just handing out flyers and handing out chalk. So anyway, the other thing that I should mention is KPFK. Don't underestimate if you have a Pacific. I don't know if you guys have a Pacifica radio station in San Diego, but the Pacifica radio station in San Francisco and here, KPFA in San Francisco and KPFK is great. I have a relationship with Lila Garrett, who has a show. Next question?
Yeah, they have a signal that goes out to San Diego. Would they, if we sent them a press release about stuff going on in San Diego, would they send the correspondence down, or is that really part of that?
Well, they don't really have, I guess they sort of do have correspondence. I don't know about KPFK, how they work. I just know I work with Lila Garrett, who has a show called Connect the Dots. It's every Monday morning at 7 a.m. And I've been on her show before to talk about fracking and the TPP. And I called her like 2 weeks before because I know she tapes on a Wednesday and the show airs on a Monday. And since our event was on Monday, I'm like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And I said, Lila, can I be on your show, this week or next week? Because I'm doing this big action. So she let me on, and I was the first 20 minutes of Monday morning. So everybody who was like driving to work, all the progressives who listened to KPFK knew what we were doing. They had the whole background, and a lot of people came out because they said, they heard me on KPFK. So, similarly, I organized an action remotely up in San Francisco when Jerry Brown was getting an environmental award from the Blue-Green Alliance.
Is that with Cindy Sheehan?
She showed up and actually tried to hijack that event, by the way, but that's another story. You have to watch out for that. It's very important to be on message when you have an event and not to let other organizations kind of come in and steal your thunder. And I don't know how to exactly do that without being rude, but we knew that Cindy was coming because she had indicated so on the Facebook event page. So we had a little organizing group, and someone said, I know her really well, I'll talk to her. And so they were able to gently talk to her in advance so she wouldn't do what she was planning to do, which is take the mic and speak. Because we had, 5 speakers up there that were very specifically speaking about why Jerry Brown does not deserve an Environmental Media Award. Anyway, I got a call from Andres Soda, who has a show on KPFK in San Francisco, and he wanted to interview me, and I was being interviewed. He said, what time's the show? And I said, so I was actually going to Vermont to visit my son that morning. I couldn't actually be at the event in San Francisco, but so he's interviewing me. I'm on the plane, and the steward, I can't call him steward, the flight attendant is standing over me telling me I have to turn off my cell phone, and I'm purposely ignoring him because I'm actually on the radio live, for this guy's show. And the guy in the back of me was getting really annoyed too because he has under the impression that they weren't starting the flight because I was on my cell phone. It was really hysterical. So anyway, I would say to really try to make use of your public radio station, especially if it's a Pacifica. KCRW here, KP is not so great, although Warren Olney, I have a little bit of a relationship with him, so I'm going to try to get him to cover this Ballona wetlands thing that's going on. They're trying to turn that into like a faux restoration wetlands theme park, which would be horrific. But know who has the shows on the public radio stations. I remember about the Koch brothers thing. I was on, Ian Masters has a show on KPFK, so he interviewed me, and I was on the March line. I remember doing the interview when we were crossing Sunset Boulevard, heading towards this intersection on the Koch brothers thing. And similarly, when we did May Day, remember when we did Let Them Eat Cupcakes?
Yes.
Okay, so this is another great idea that Alyssa had. Again, an idea that's visual and coverage worthy, although we didn't promote this well enough because we didn't get any TV stations there, and it really would have been perfect. The idea we were going to go on Rodeo Drive and do like a flash mob thing where we would be in front of these stores, and I was dressed up in like this fake Chanel suit, and there was another guy who was dressed up with like torn jeans, and so like he the idea was like every 10 minutes to blow the whistle and then to stop in front of the store. And so I stood like with my stiletto heel on, he was lying on the ground, and my thing said, this Chanel suit would provide a semester's worth of tuition at Cal State Northridge, or something like that. It was equating the crazy prices that the 1% pay for their things, you know, like $2,500 for a Chanel suit, or like we stopped in front of Prada and the sign said, these Prada shoes is 2 months rent, or 2 months car payment, or something like that. So it was just a little like creative thing without disrupting anything, just to let the shoppers know in Beverly Hills, to put into perspective, you know, again, always keeping the issue of the 99% versus the 1% at the forefront. Because, you know, with media, you know, anything has to have strategy behind it. I mean, like, I posted something the other day, I don't know who said it, action without vision is something, and vision without action is something else, you know, meaning like you have to have both. So everything should be part of an overall strategy, which I think in Occupy or in any of our movements is really human need over corporate greed, you know, equality for the 99%, whatever. And you want to keep like bringing home that message, so that there's sort of a zeitgeist, or I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, that everybody sees that these movements are all connected, basically, and these aren't little isolated actions of frustrated people, but this is really what this is what democracy looks like. I mean, that is a really good chant, because that's, and human need, not corporate greed, that's really what we're trying to do with all of our actions. So it's important, whatever, you know, your message is for that action, to sort of tie it back in, because if you send out this message long enough, eventually it'll get through to people that are kind of sleeping.
Does anyone else have any more questions?
Yeah.
Okay, Scott?
I wanted to go back a little bit to the timing thing. And when the advisory versus the press release goes out, if somebody has a show on Monday morning and you have an event on Wednesday and you don't get the press advisory out on Tuesday, you're not going to be on that Monday morning show, even for an announcement. So knowing all your media contacts and what their real schedules are, I think is really critical. If the news cycle is, I have to spend 3 hours writing an article, you better get me that stuff early enough to get to my deadline. And you should know that for all of your media contacts. So that timing thing is always something that I think about, and I wanted to know how the timing worked. I didn't really follow the mainstream stuff except for the KPFK announcements and afterwards. But I did notice this huge upsurge on my internet, on Facebook and on my new media, and I wanted to know how that was being coordinated, or was it even being coordinated, about the upcoming action. Because I think that's like the other half of this discussion is traditional media usage and then alternative media usage.
Oh yeah, well we were
And
basically...
what was the timing for that?
Well, you know...
How long did it take to get the 15 memes that I saw fly by, and 15,000, and who did it, and how many more people? Let me just finish. Oh,
I thought.
Right. So I hear 6 major organizations. I see 10, 20 major media outlets that you're coordinating with. And I see this massive action. I see 250 people show up, and I see this. It's almost like a little organization to pull this off. And I want to get a better feel for what does it take to. I'd like you to express. What does it take to do that, and then tie it to the new media?
Well, I mean, it really takes me working 24/7 on this. I hate to say it, because I really get up in the morning, and like if I have an action coming up, this is all I do. And you know, there was a team in the chat window that you're talking about, but a lot of people, I'm sorry to say, they just did not pull their weight. And I don't want to name any names, but certain people did more than others, and certain people did nothing. And certain people did things after the fact, and you know, everything helps, but really what I would have done if I had done a debrief on that is I would have said, you know, listen, we really have to have roles. I tried to get meetings together. We did have a site meeting beforehand. I tried to anticipate some of these things, like we need people, we need legal observers, we need people to make sure the crowd stays on the sidewalks, because I know how Beverly Hills is. They're fine. As long as we're on the sidewalks, they're not going to give us any trouble. You know, I would have liked to have somebody else to kind of lead the march so that I could talk to the media. You know, all this stuff should have been planned out more in advance, but, you know, considering and this is me, I'm a perfectionist, so I'm always going to pick apart something after it happens like this, although I still think it was wildly successful. But to answer your question, I got a lot of help from certain people in these groups, like Zach Caldever from the Organic Consumers Association was awesome. He he was the first one to say, I'm going to get them to pay to fly me down to this event. And he publicized it. They have 700,000 members, the Organic Consumers Association, and their members are really hopped up. Anything that comes to like GMOs or Monsanto, and all they have to do is like sick their members. I'll never forget when he decided to get into the fracking thing, and we needed calls to the California Assemblyman's office. They were going to vote on the moratorium bill. He put something out, and within like the first hour, they had 200 calls. It crashed their phone lines. So I have made good friends with Zach Caldever from the Organic Consumers Association, as well as other organizations like March on Monsanto. All these organizations have like an event page, and if they're smart, they keep their event page going. Like I extended the TPP page to the end of the year, and I'll probably extend it further until we kill this thing. Because being able to communicate with people on an event page, you already know that you're getting a very interested audience. So I actually joined a lot of people's pages, like Anonymous. When I saw that Million Masked March, I didn't go to it, but I watched it on Patty's live stream, and I saw how many people were out there. I said, I gotta get to know these people, because these people can mobilize other people. So now I have all these new friends in Anonymous that I didn't have like a month ago, and I'm in there like, every group has an event page, they have a community page, they have a closed group. I managed to join all of these. So I'm in Anonymous, I'm in March on Monsanto, and I use my old pages. I mean, we organized there were 1,200 people that came out on the Keystone pipeline thing. I was actually in DC for it, but I helped organize a solidarity rally here in LA. We had 1,200 people come out on February 17th. And when I watched it on Patty's live stream after I came home from the DC one, I was so jealous because it was 10 degrees in DC and you guys were all in t-shirts. And so that page, I go back, anytime I have an event, I post it on that page. And I go back and post it on the Koch brothers page. And I go back and post it on like my Fran Pavley fracking action page. I just keep making use of existing pages and existing groups, and then they share it. And it really helps to have a good meme. I have to tell you, Brian Connolly is the best meme creator. The other side effect of him becoming homeless, aside from the fact that he's homeless, is he no longer has access to his computer and his Photoshop, and his great meme making machine has been shut down. I mean, he's like, I have not seen memes like his from anybody until this latest one came out about the TPP, which has a cow being screwed in the butt by a bull. And it's the most incredible graphic, and it's been shared more times than any graphic I've ever seen.
No, I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
Just so you asked about the memes and where they come from, and although I said to Lauren, I cannot help you with this thing. I was in the chat box, but I was like, Lauren, I believe very much in step up, step back, but activists also become targeted if they're seen too much holding a megaphone. It's a very strange thing that happened. So I was like, I'm gonna step back. But in the background, there's actually a TPP meme team that has been working together that I'm a part of, which is where that came from. And I did like, I think the dripping blood one with corporate nationhood, where I learned all day how to make blood drip on font. It was like a full day to learn how to make dripping blood, but I could do anyone's harm me now. If you need a title cover. But there's a TPP meme team, and in the background of what she was doing, when I had decided to step back, I just decided to work with other media networks, and I think it was Nick who had helped move some of the stuff, because I was dropping it into another group, and what we'll talk a little bit about later is collective collaboration, which was a big element that has been helping raise awareness about the TPP, that is getting people to want to join things like a TPP meme team and donate their graphic art skills and or their video editing skills. So a lot of that is actually collective collaboration. And even if you need to step back and you can't go out there and lead a march, or you're not going to be able to write a press release or whatever, sometimes in the background you can help in very small ways just by sharing the information and working with other collectives.
So, I just,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
One thing about the names real quick. What I found to be like the best way to make names is first you need a guy that's really good at making graphics. And the problem is that you can't just rely on one guy to come up with all the ideas. Just because he's good at making graphics doesn't mean he has any ideas to make. So it's good to have like a little group together, maybe 5 or 10 people that are interested in that kind of thing, where they can just bounce ideas in and out of the group. Where one guy may come up with a catchy line, one guy may have a good image, and then the other guy can turn it into a meme and teach it back. So it's good to have like a little group of people that can kind of, it's really about bouncing ideas off people's brains and getting good images made. So a lot of memes, like some of the best memes will be like 3 people's like brainchild.
Yeah.
Did you coordinate the hashtag and the Twitter and the memes a month out, or
Okay,
a day
so
late and you were rushed?
we are going to talk about campaigns, which are called hashtags. The Stop the TPP and Flush the TPP hashtags that came out, which for those people who don't know, a hashtag is kind of like a digital bookmark. In ways, like you just put in the hashtag and you're able to pull up all this information related to that hashtag. So in this case, it was Stop the TPP and Flush the TPP, and I just sort of caught up. Like I saw it, so I started using it because you realize this was going to pull people back to this information so that they can see. But in the TPP meme team, the corporate nationhood one, like, it said like, if the TPP passes, say goodbye to democracy. I made that meme, right? And it says say hello to corporate nationhood, and corporate nationhood is dripping in blood. It's gonna fucking kill us, but whatever. So, but in that group, that meme was run, I did like 6 versions of that meme. And people, because the way you think, you might really understand an issue. And I might write a line coming from the perspective of someone who very much understands an issue, and then someone else reads it and says, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. Unless I understand what the TPP is, you're pretty much speaking gibberish. Can you make this more clear? And so you'll kind of run things, or they'll be like, I can't see that on my iPhone. Like, you're working on a computer, your graphic looks great, but when I pull it up on my iPhone or my BlackBerry, like, it's blurry. Can you make those letters bigger? So that's kind of what goes on in the meme team. I had found the picture of the tombstones. Someone had dropped it in there and was like, oh, this would be cool for a meme. And I was like, ooh, dripping blood and blah. So my brains, and so I pulled it and decided that was going to be the graphic that I was going to put the words on. And that's kind of how a meme team works. And it's a way to kind of have that chat box, but for graphic arts.
Yeah, Erica, I shouldn't forget Erica, because she came up with 4 memes. Erica Herrera, and it was the NAFTA on steroids one, and, with this woman sort of pumping iron, and then there was the guy, the most interesting man, and what was that meme? I don't always something, but when I do, it's the TPP. I don't remember.
Dos Equis.
Yeah, I forget what the specific language was, and
Did that take a month?
No, I mean, sometimes they're very fast. Like, I had a meme reach like 50 million people that I wrote in 2 minutes. I'm gonna bring it up later.
But I mean, in this situation,
Hey,
you were rolling this
the
out.
time, like,
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to like just move along because of time. I just want to say, so Fernando lets us use the space for free, and I know not everyone can afford to donate, but if people could, I know classes are free, and like we might continue doing this, but anything that people could contribute to Fernando would be greatly appreciated. So I'm gonna pass this around. So feel free to pass it along. Who is next? Do you want to go next?
I'm not gonna go, but maybe we should go with Nick and then John, because they came from far away.
Okay, so, and then I think some people had a couple questions before I'm gonna have Nick talk about Facebook, but does anyone have any more questions regarding basic social media things? Just so that we're not speaking a foreign language. I know hashtag was one of them. What is a hashtag and how do you use it? Is there any other basic social media questions? And could you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, I got here late. I am Dylan. I live pretty close. I just moved here from New York, though. Literally just got here. Not literally, it was like a couple weeks ago. So, I don't know anybody here. So, somehow I figured out about, you're just friends with so many people with this type of thing. So, figured I'd show up and try to answer questions.
And then what's your basic question?
My basic question, is Facebook set up for hashtags? I don't know.
Yes.
But it wasn't always, correct?
No.
I think the hashtags have to be in the original post. I think hashtags you put in comments.
Yeah, I don't think they work in comments. They work in the original post.
Just the original.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
But you can, yeah.
They're clickable and it'll bring up everything.
I haven't used them. I use them everywhere else, but.
Yeah, now if you enter your hashtag in the search bar, it will, in Facebook, it'll bring up all those Facebook posts with the hashtags. I only learned about that a couple of hours ago. Is there any, and don't be like embarrassed or anything, like any other basic questions about social media?
What's the difference between a hashtag and a tag?
Oh, anyone want to answer the question? What's the difference between a hashtag and a tag?
Where you pound sign and then put it in, tag is the at sign, and you find the person in the at sign, and you click on the at sign, clicks to your friend or
So a tag is alerting somebody, it's like paging somebody to your post. But a hashtag is for anybody to find it later.
Sometimes they have, you know, when you're doing something, you put all your tags down there in this little box.
Yeah, well, that's for somebody later searching the system. Yeah, it's kind of the same and kind of different.
It's a little bit different, like I might tag you in a photo, like I can have my, originally.
That's a different thing.
Right, so, or I might tag you in a post to say like, hey, this person's a part of this, or this person should read it. But when you look up a hashtag, you'll get everything that somebody's ever posted about that hashtag. So if we did Flush the TPP, you would get articles, you would get status updates, you would get pictures, you would get videos, and it would all be related to Flush the TPP.
Can you actually show us how to do this?
I'm trying to, so what I'm gonna try and do in a little bit is, my computer is not hooking up to here. But we're gonna try and get something hooked up to here so that we can kind of review a couple of these things on the big screen so that everyone
So
can hear what
I'm noticing that it's almost 4 o'clock now, and we had scheduled this till 5 o'clock. So I just want to ask people, we're obviously not going to get through everything that we plan to do today. Do people want to go longer than 5 o'clock?
Is everyone cool with that?
Because the space isn't needed until like 7. So I don't know if people want to go that long, but just whatever the group wants to do, we can do.
I'm just gonna move this because I'm gonna eat all this food because today's my day. And you guys, this is for everyone, so please feel free to eat. And then I just want to introduce somebody that I've been following for a really long time, maybe to the point of harassing because I admire his work, which is I'm Nick Burnaby, whose work I saw him first burst onto the scene with Anti-Media and one of the dopest logos that I've ever seen. And I've been following the development of that ever since. So this is Nick from Anti-Media.
Hey guys. Well, we started the Anti-Media like a little over 2 years ago. Just because we were tired of the mainstream media narrative and how they control like all the politics and they were controlling the public opinion.
Can you guys hear? Should I move closer?
I think after what we saw happen with the Syrian war propaganda, I think we kind of saw that the tide has shifted now, and that I think that the mainstream media isn't actually the opinion maker anymore. It comes from the internet and social media. Not saying the mainstream doesn't still have a thing like that, but I think social media, alternative independent media, has now become more effective than mainstream stuff. Just because people have become so fed up with it after all the flubs and the media isn't actually legally required to tell the truth anymore. It actually ties back to Monsanto. It was in the 90s. The media legally is allowed to fabricate things and just lie to people. The only accountability they have is public backlash. There's no legal. So that's what my page started as, and it kind of grew into like a big Facebook media movement. All we do is we try to promote independent media and stuff like that. But what I wanted to talk about is some effective strategies to get your Facebook pages growing and engaging, and how you can correlate your websites or your content, your news reporting and stuff into Facebook. I guess the first thing to understand is that there's so many posts going out every day that the average person on Facebook only gives your content about 2 seconds, if that. So people are just scrolling through their page. If your content doesn't jump out at you, or they can think twice and have to like look at it and actually click on it, people for the most part are just going to ignore it. So, you know, you make a post to a Facebook page that has, let's just say for instance, 10,000 followers. You know, you're going to see how many people saw it, and then maybe 1,000 people saw it, but you may only have like 10 likes. So that's one of the big things you have to figure out is posting content. Every single thing you post on your page, you want it to be engaging to your audience. Because every time you post something and it falls flat, you get Facebook basically punishing you. Because whenever you post something that Facebook sees your fans aren't really like that into it, they're gonna basically downrank your quality, and you're gonna be less likely to show up at someone's newsfeed. So I think that's the first thing. We all know memes are probably the biggest thing on Facebook, so that's a really important thing to focus on. Original content is good, like we talked about before. You set up like a team, and the cool thing is that you can share content with a bunch of different pages. So you set up a team that can make good content, and then you find other outlets that are similar to you, that have like a like-minded vision, to work with them. You know, find people that are just like she was saying about the TPP protests. You can get people from the March Against Monsanto to help you promote that. So it's important to find maybe, let's say you have a page for your website, maybe find a couple other websites that are similar to what you post, and you guys work together to share each other's content back and forth, whether it's an article or a meme from one page to another. You guys work together, and you all grow together. I think that's probably the most important thing you can do on Facebook, and that's how I was able to grow my network so big. Is working out mutual relationships with other Facebook pages, other admins, and so even if there's a page that you don't know and you like their content and you share their content, just send them a message and say, hey, I shared your meme or I shared your article. Just let them know, you know, so that later on, if you approach them to work together, they're going to already know you because you've been sharing your stuff. So it's really important to give a little bit more than you take. And the meme thing, I guess, is probably the biggest thing, because that can make, you know, can really make or break your page. We already talked about the original content, but the other thing is you can, I mean, it's not a crime to like steal other people's meme. So you find there's a meme that you like from a page, you can take that meme and then upload it to your page, and then just tag the page back so that, you know, you kind of give them credit for it. You don't even have to do that much. But the main thing is, like I was saying before, is you don't want to post anything that's not going to have a big reaction from your followers. So it's important, besides the original stuff, to find images and memes that you've already seen go viral, that they can go viral, or that a lot of people are going to interact with them. And then you get those and you post those on your page as well. So that everything you're posting, you know that people are going to interact with it. You know, because it's really hard to tell what's going to be effective at getting the audience engaged and what's not. Because sometimes we'll make a meme and we're like, this is like the best meme I've ever made, and we'll post it on a page with like 100,000 followers and it'll get like 50 likes. You know, but sometimes we'll.
Yeah, it's like they show the name of your page. You're like, oh, that's not my page. So
yeah, sometimes stuff will take a while.
Do you think that a meme can be overdone? Like, I was just thinking as you were talking about that, I'm like thinking, oh shit, I should have used that Hitler meme for the TPP. It would have been so perfect. But then I'm thinking to myself, maybe that Hitler meme has been overused already.
Well, it depends. It's really hard to tell.
You know which one I'm talking about, that scene from the movie where Hitler is admonishing, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever topic it is.
Yeah, and it's in German, so it's just, you just translate it with whatever content you want to say.
From the movie Voltron?
Just to sort of keep structure, if we could just hold discussion until after, and do Q&A until after Nick's done, so that he can finish, and then we'll have a Q&A. And then you'll have a break.
Now, the one thing about overdoing memes, I think it's good to reuse the ones that are really familiar, like, you know, everyone knows the Morpheus meme, and you know, those kind of memes. Those you can always recaption with something cool and something relevant. You know. It's also good to use like a relevant photo, a new photo, find a good image of, you know, if you did one about Obama, find an image of him golfing or him with owner, with John Boehner or whatever, if you're trying to draw like a connection between the Republican and Democrat Party and how similar they actually are, or whatever. But the one thing about overdoing memes is kind of like a slideshow. It's kind of like a Photoshop. I mean, not a Photoshop, a PowerPoint. It's like a PowerPoint presentation. Now, if you're at a PowerPoint presentation, if you're at a presentation and someone's giving a PowerPoint, and it's like a whole essay in one slide, it's really hard to get your attention. You know, if you're, that's the same thing with memes. If you have too many things on one meme, people are just going to ignore it. You know, and so you just want to have like one or two really powerful lines on your meme, so that, like I was saying, people are only going to look at it for like a split second. So it's got to be something with big enough letters and simple enough. And I hate to say it, but you have to dumb down a lot of this stuff, because if you make a meme that just says, you know, stop the TPP, half the people aren't going to know what the TPP is. You know, so you have to like really dumb it down a bit and make it so simple that if you're just looking at it for a split second, it's going to stop you and catch your attention, and then you're going to click on it, and then you're going to sign the petition, or you're going to read the article, or whatever it is that we're trying to do. Now, the other cool thing about memes, and especially when they're going viral, is you can add a link in with the caption, and you could use the meme as like a vehicle to take a petition or to take an event link to try to build up an action or whatever. And I was brought into the March Against Monsanto campaign, like the central campaign. We were trying to promote this thing throughout the whole world and build up all these events. And what really kicked that event off, I remember after about a month into, we started the page like in February, and we started the event in February, and the march was going to be in May. About a month in, we only had about 200 people RSVP'd for the whole March Against Monsanto event. And this is like the global event page, which should have a lot of people RSVP'd. We only had about 200 people RSVP'd to it. But what happened was, the day that Obama signed the Monsanto Protection Act into law, we put out a meme, and it happened to be one of our most viral memes ever. And on that meme, we had the event link for the March Against Monsanto. And when that meme went viral, and we posted it on a bunch, like almost all of our pages, and we went overnight from 200 RSVP to 5,000. And by like a week later, we were up to like 10,000, 15,000 RSVP on the event. So, you know, it's kind of funny that like memes, you know, everyone kind of thinks of memes as like just silly stuff and like cartoons or whatever, but they can actually be used to really get things done. And I think memes are very important when you're trying to advertise an action, and I guess the way to get them out there is by building these relationships with the other page administrators. So you want to work in like you want to work with other pages like in a cooperative way, where if they have a meme that they need more attention to, you can share it for them, and then when you have something that you need out to other people, they can share it for you. So it's really important, and I can't stress this enough, to find like-minded pages and admins, and then you could even you can say, okay, well, I'll put one of your admins on my page, we put one of our admins on your page, and so that we can directly post our content when we need to. And you know, of course, you follow their guidelines and stuff, but it's also important to get more and more pages working together. And right now we're experimenting with it on the local level, you know, but nationally it's worked really well to you know, spread out our audience, get more reach for our content, and we've been able to help out a lot of journalists that have articles that need to be seen, because we're able to share one article on like 20, 30, 40, 50 different pages that all have 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 followers. You know, so it's a lot easier to spread the news that way. So for instance, when you're putting out your articles talking about, you know, leading up to an action, you know, when you have an article come out a week or two before the action talking about what's going to happen and all that, you know, it's important to already have those connections built up, where when you put out, it's basically an advertisement for your action. You can have that go out and hit, you know, thousands of people at a time, instead of just hitting your 50 followers or your 100, 200, 2,000 followers or whatever. You know, you get other people to get on board with you, and what you do is you pay it forward. You know, you help them out first, because at the time you don't wait till the last second when all of a sudden you need the help. You locate them before you need their help, and you pay it forward. You help them out so that later on, you can ask for their help back. I think that's been my biggest key to success is getting other people, networking with other pages, other admins, other organizations that are kind of compatible with what you're talking about, and then just all working together. And then by doing that, you generate some kind of like you generate like a viral buzz, if you can. Like that's how we did with the March Against Monsanto. We were able to raise the amount of people talking about it up, and at that point, if you do it enough, you force your way into the mainstream, and then the mainstream has to cover it just because there's so many people talking about it online. So
all the memes that you talked about, they're two-dimensional. Have you ever seen video or three-dimensional memes sort of generated at YouTube?
Like a GIF or something?
No, just like a YouTube clip, Gundam style was super successful because it got out there. 10 million media picked it up.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen anybody really tap into YouTube or just video as a way of generating media?
No, that's one thing that's starting to really take off right now is like you could actually upload your videos on Facebook now, and that's another really good way of generating followers and mainly finding a lot of new followers, because like a meme is so easy for someone to just take it, save it, and then upload it to their computer. A video, like if you put a viral video on your Facebook page, it's more likely that people are going to share it rather than copy it and use it. So that's a really good way of getting a reach to whatever demographic that you're trying to target, is using the Facebook video feature. And you could, there's various ways where you could find, get videos. You could even get them from YouTube, download them, get a program to download them, and then re-upload them onto your Facebook page. And that is a really good way of getting your content and your brand and your name out there.
I actually have 3 questions. First of all, what type of page are you talking about when you put on your video? Are you talking about group page? Are you talking about personal page? Are you talking about, what is that called, a business page?
Community page.
Community page.
Yeah, it's basically a community page.
Okay, second question is, how do you create a meme? What keys do you punch? What programs do you use? How do you create a meme?
Well, the simplest way of doing it is there's a couple websites like Reno Memes or Meme Creator.
Paint.net.
If you Google meme generator and you want to start with like the very basic, when you want to make more, you'll break away from there and figure out other ways. But meme generator is, Google that and you just find a meme generator application that you're comfortable with. And there's lots of them.
Yeah, they're really simple, and then most of them will have like existing templates that you could use that are like well known. But then you also want to get like relevant pictures, like stuff that just came out of an event or something memorable, like the guy that was fake sign languaging at the Mandela thing, that turned into a huge meme. So it's good to find stuff that's relevant and that's happening, and then immediately start using it to make meme levels.
Okay. Last question is, when I try and share something from my blog, if I, like for instance, if I have to just take out the address and post it as like in the status bar, I don't get a choice of what image I'm going to use. I might get one image as either no image or the image that it sort of fits for me.
On your, if you have a community page, you could choose images.
Right, on the community page I can, but
on your profile, no,
I can't.
No, not really. It just depends on the images you have in the article. There is a little like arrow bar where you can click through the thumbnails, which is usually activate thumbnails. But depending on your site, if it's not like optimized to fit the way Facebook reads it, then your thumbnails are gonna come up right.
And you can also make a picture out of it directly from Facebook. have to go to the Facebook page and enter a photo that's already uploaded or from the blog. You know how to enter a photo on
Yeah, I know how to, that's
Yeah,
what I
So,
enter a photo.
you want to put your photo on first before you put your blog link.
And then in the caption, you're just, that's a very common rule, like a lot of
Yeah.
companies, you just put the text, you can put the whole blog text. And then it's from your blog, and it links to your blog because you put the link to your blog. But then you can also see it as a picture on Facebook. And the cool thing about that is it's kept on your page, your community page, indefinitely instead of just sort of like passing.
Yeah, I want to just add to what you said about putting on other people's pages. It's always helpful if you can somehow relate your event to what they're all about, rather than just putting it there with notes. Like, for instance, like the fracking pages. I'll say, you know, you can kiss your fracking ban goodbye if the TPP passes. Or like on Move to Amend's, you know, concern about corporate money in politics. I mean, this takes the problem global, you know, whatever. I just always try to tie it in because that's what they're going to see as well as the meme. They're going to see whatever, you know, little thing that you wrote. And then the other thing is make use of people who have email lists. I know it's not social media, but people still do. Like there's people like Quasi and Kruma and Frank Durrell and, you know, other people that send out emails and they have certain formats. So for the TPP thing, I used their format and I sent them something that they could then send by email to their hosts. So, Scott?
So this TPP thing is a really good case study in this integrated media. So I want to talk about something that might be a little touchy, overload. So I tend to read things that have someone's name on it that I follow, or maybe the meme has become kind of the logo to me for the event, or the event page has a meme or a logo that I can kind of go to. But I really can't stand going to every Facebook page that I'm on and seeing the same thing. I get, I don't know, or I get burnt out from it. And first of all, the meme was funny, maybe, and it caught my eye, but then I really want to go deeper. I want it to go away and leave me alone. I don't know really, that's my reaction as a user, right? Strong, right? I mean, I don't know what to do. I mean, I just don't think that I think organizing takes place based on personal relationship. And if Patty posts something, I click on it. If Joe Schmo posts it, I may not. And I don't want to, I want to know how to avoid that. Is there a strategy that we could employ that doesn't involve putting that same thing up in 400 places and having it see 60 times?
Talking about spam.
Yeah, it's spam is a big problem, and that's one other thing I wanted to talk about too. I'll talk about that after this, but the thing is that most Facebook pages are only reaching roughly about, each post will reach about 2% of the audience. And Facebook slowly over the last like 8 months, they're slowly but surely trying to work us out of the equation. And they're trying to put, you know, CNN to the forefront and MSNBC and all these ingrained people. And that's kind of one of the drawbacks that we face, is that sometimes the stuff can come off as spam, but it's just because it's so hard to reach, you know, the audience. So sometimes that does happen. Now the other thing is that Facebook sees it and they know that it's repeat content. So anytime there's something that's being used on a bunch of different pages, and or let's say for instance, because we've been making this big push for the TPP on the March Against Monsanto, and some of our admins are kind of new and they don't know exactly what to do, but they kept on using the same caption over and over, you know, the same exact paragraph about the TPP. And eventually, after you use it about 5 or 10 times, you post it and nobody's going to see it because Facebook says, okay, that's spam. Because you guys are using the same exact words over and over, that's going to be spam. So they just don't let anyone see it. So you can post it and it doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers, you know, only 20 people will see it. So, so for every single post you make, you want to have a unique description, a unique caption, and also a unique link too. So if we're pointing everyone to one link for one event page or to one article or to one petition, if that link keeps getting posted over and over by the same outlet, they just start, every time you post it, it reduces the number of people that sees it, you know, because Facebook sees it as spam.
Is that when they have that this thing was either removed by, or he didn't have permission to put it up, or something like that?
Yeah, that's normally if you put like gore or like nudity, or unless you're getting like censored.
Censored?
Yeah,
Sharing
a lot of
stuff
times
on
they'll
secret
remove
groups.
stuff that they just feel like they should remove.
Does that include videos?
What was that?
If you have videos?
They can. A lot of times the videos get taken down because they're like copyright infringement
Is there a way to
or
make those
if
links
it's too gory, they'll take it
different?
down.
Is there a way to, like, if, let's say we have something you want to link to the same event, is there a way to make the event page link look different? Or do you have to set up 15 event pages that?
I think you can use different short links and stuff like that, like Bitly and Google has a shortener, Facebook has its own shortener too. And then you could also, you get all your friends that have different blogs, and then you have them post an article with basically a link to the event link that you're trying to get everybody to. And so that you have like, if you get 15 different blogs to post an article with the same link in it, you can choose between those 15 links every time you make a post about it, so that you're not using the same link over and over. Because every time you use that link over, it reduces the amount of the same link. And it also
set up dummy blogs to do that?
What was that?
Would you set up dummy blogs to do that?
You could if you had to, but you can just find some people that have blogs that are on the same page.
Just to clarify, you can post a meme a lot, but you need to change the caption. That's the trick, like Facebook.
Well, also you can post the same meme on different pages over and over.
Exactly. That's
But
right.
if you post the same exact meme on the same page, it's like the same thing. It gets seen by less and less people each time.
Yeah, I don't do that, but I have multiple pages, and if I post, sometimes I just like, I get a good little caption that I find, and I must have seen it or get wrong, because I'll post it on all the pages the same. So to get away from that, I post this, if I pick something I really want to post on the pages, I just need to just change the caption, and I have at least a better chance.
Yeah, like so let's say you make a really good meme and you have 5 or 10 pages. You could upload that meme on all 10 pages. Or you want to space it out though, so you want to put it like an hour apart each post. And yeah, you could use the scheduler feature too. And that's the main thing is that you don't want to reuse the same image on the same page, and you don't want to reuse the same caption over and over, no matter what page you're going to. So for each page you want to have a different caption, even if you have the same meme, because they kind of have, they have some kind of some way of detecting all that stuff. And when they see that happening, they put your content down. And then sometimes they'll even like you may even have like a punishment for that, so that they won't let your stuff be seen for like a month after, just because they think you're spamming. Yeah, so it's something to be really careful of.
Are there any other questions?
Where's the schedule feature located then?
Oh, that's right. Like where the content box is, there's like a little clock thing underneath. And then you can click there and you can just schedule it. And you want to schedule your stuff at least like an hour apart per post.
You have a question?
Yes, it's going back to the law that you stated that the news programs do not have to tell the truth, that they can actually lie. Are you familiar with how that law came about, or when it was, or how to research it?
Yeah, if you just like go on Google and if you type in Fox News, Monsanto, it was about that bovine growth hormone in the milk. It's not an actual law. It's basically it's basically where they said corporations are people and that they have free speech. That's kind of, I think that's where it got started.
You could just type in.
No, it's basically because the media, the government, you can't restrict what the media says. So they take it as saying, if the media says it can say whatever the heck it wants to say, and we just gotta let the marketplace of the
ideas. It's just like how you're legally allowed to like lie to people. Like if you lie to someone, you're not gonna like go to jail for it. It's kind of the same thing with the media. And they made that argument where, even though we call ourselves news and people think that we're going to tell the truth, we don't necessarily have to, because that's our. They say that's their right to decide.
There is a court decision though that
Hold
made
there.
it. There was a court decision.
Yeah,
that
and
made
just
it
so you know,
official.
you can't have a functioning democracy
So even though
without
it's not
people
a
having
law,
access to accurate information
basically
of how we got here, so.
I can speak to her question directly. There were two acts that happened. It's called the Fairness Doctrine. And in the 1980s, Reagan I forgot what the exact act was, but there was a rollback in truth requirement. You had to be truthful in the prior to like 1987 when you gave the news. So there was a rollback then, and under Clinton, they did a second part of that. So after the Clinton change, that's when you saw Clear Channel and this huge sort of consolidation both in corporate media. And you know, it's like you were saying, as a result of this, the fairness doctrine rollback, private media can say whatever it wants. There's no accountability.
Do we have any more questions? I'm gonna give, everyone take like a 20-minute break and like breathe, smoke a cigarette, get it on. 20 minutes is too long. Okay, 15 minutes, but it'll probably be 20. So let's take a break. I'm gonna try and set up some of this audio visual equipment. I have one more question before we go. Are people here interested in actually trying to set up a media network like they're listening to when we leave today? Are the people here interested in working with some of these people to actually try and implement it? We might all fail, it could totally suck, but at least try it.
We're actually trying to do this thing down in San Diego called the San Diego Media Collective, so that we go and pass out flyers to random people in San Diego, and then it just creates a hub of people like me or myself, or me and Nick, that do alternative media, and then it's just one big hub for everybody locally to find out what's going on, so we can start replacing these local NBC chapters, ABC, online.
If I can put this up, I'm going to talk a little bit about Smart Moms, but I've actually been watching groups do this for some time. It's to me in a lot of groups where I'm a contributor, but I've just kind of been watching how it goes through, and I think probably should use like a fourth iteration of a certain model. And I know that we're talking about doing people's media collective in LA, but as you're talking about collaboration, like I always feel like I have this conversation with Vlad, but I had this conversation with Vlad about, yes, it's important to conceptualize, but also you have to bigger projects that everyone works together on, that you begin to know each other's strengths, you can collaborate, and it kind of serves as a way to keep everyone networked. I think like March Against Monsanto had an umbrella, like I have to be the March Against Monsanto LA page, but the bigger umbrella is actually like the March Against Monsanto, because the Revolution News is Revolution News, but we made kids first and like smaller, so like maybe
Hey, Bob the fucking journalist. Hi.
Who've already done it and have experience, and sort of
Why are you heading in the corner room?
a lot of
We'll have to make
like,
this circle bigger so you can fit.
like that's outside of our process, but
Yeah, me
like,
too.
you know, we don't talk about like simple things or speak with us, not for us, like sort of learning those types of basics of how to stay on message or staying on message or vision, but just trying to get everyone to do it.
Me too, me too.
Yeah, we're experimenting.
I know.
You gotta like roll with it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're both from San Diego.
Alright, so I think I'm gonna drop the stream and take a little break. Say hi to Bob the fucking journalist. Hey now. So guys, I will be back in 15 minutes. I think there's coffee here. No,
Yes.
so you guys, 15 minutes, I'll be back.